We live in a fast-paced, rapidly evolving technological world. We've reached a point where we simply flick a switch to see light. Many of us choose not to cook anymore and can order pretty much any item to our door within 24 hours. Technology, innovation, and efficiency should theoretically bring us closer together and enrich our society. In many cases, that's true, of course, but in others, it's not. The truth is, we have become efficient. So efficient, it's actually unreal. Aside from during COVID, everything always seems to be on the move. It's always about the next big thing, the next big discovery. So much so that the entire capitalist world has essentially become one big profit-incentivized corporation. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. Capitalism, like any other system, has no shortage of challenges or problems. But it's no coincidence that the highest performing economies the world has ever seen are those where there is meaningful profit incentive for those that succeed. The fact that the overwhelming majority of us in the West have a roof over our heads, some food to eat, access to running water, and electricity powering our homes is in large part attributable to the staggering wealth that capitalism has generated over the years. So where does the issue lie? Well, it really lies in a word that is part and parcel of capitalism: efficiency. You see, in the true spirit of Adam Smith, we have specialized our economies through highly repeatable and scalable processes. We mass produce absolutely everything, sometimes literally through the production line, and sometimes figuratively by way of the corporate hierarchy. Virtually everything in our economy is about adjusting, refining, and perfecting processes. With everyone doing virtually the same thing day in, day out, we can milk our resources for every ounce of output that they can muster. You see, our entire economic system is about the output of wealth, and it does it to absolute perfection. I'm not saying that wealth is distributed in a perfect way. I'm talking exclusively about GDP and the overall wealth our economic machine generates. The huge challenge with this is that human beings have simply not evolved for mass production or profit maximization. We're not supposed to do the same thing every day. If we were, middle managers would be the happiest creatures on the planet. However, as we know, that is not the case. With depression rates at record levels, nihilism is plaguing our society. What seems to have emerged over the last 70 or so years is a curious dichotomy between that which is in our economic interests and that which we have been programmed for. This came to a climax during the free market 80s and the huge wave of consumerism that followed. All of this brings us to today's cultural analysis: Fight Club. Fight Club is a film all about the struggle of modern man. The man who did what society told him to do. He went to school, got good grades, got a degree, got a job, and began to ascend the corporate hierarchy. In time, he got himself a very respectable flat in the city, some enviable IKEA furniture, a nice TV, an up-to-date wardrobe, and no doubt had a bit of cash left to enjoy himself with. But the truth is, like many around him, our narrator had become dead on the inside. He complains that every day is the same. The road behind him looks identical to the road in front of him. He knows he has reached the apex of modern civilization and is now plagued with one thought: is this it? Throughout the first part of the film, we see many signs that the narrator is not alone in his feelings of perfect nihilism. Modern men have become emasculated, dealing with problems through petty self-help seminars and superficial psychological treatment. There is no sign of the hero in man, no warrior, magician, or lover. Just a motionless, mass-produced, wealth-generating porn. Later in the film, the narrator meets Tyler Durden, a man with a series of enviable qualities. He's good-looking, charming, intelligent, funny, and most importantly, free. He doesn't succumb to the mass-producing capitalist reality of quasi-21st century society. Tyler alerts the narrator to the issue of modern society and encourages the narrator to take ownership of his life and be reborn as a newly enlightened man. The narrator embraces this call to adventure, and together, the young men start Fight Club, a group that embraces traditional masculine traits of discipline and sacrifice in favor of the grey hedonism of corporate America. Due to a combination of time and the fact that Fight Club's first rules were rarely observed, the movement sees significant traction across the United States. More and more disillusioned men find a new sense of purpose in embracing traditional masculine values. Tyler Durden makes a famous speech stating that advertising makes us chase things we don't need to impress people we don't like. We have no great war or depression. Our depression is our lives. Their TVs growing up told them they'd be rock stars, but they're not. They're just cogs in a hyper-efficient, wealth-creating machine. You see, man is not supposed to lie idle in the Garden of Eden. He is not built to merely eat cake and busy himself with the continuation of his species. He is built to struggle and make sacrifices in the name of what he believes in. Pretty soon, Fight Club becomes an amalgam of red-pilled collectivists who have identified their enemy as the effects of globalist free market capitalism. Before we move on to looking at the next part of the film, let's pause for a second and put this all into context. Although the two phenomena are not identical, we can draw several parallels between Fight Club and the significant nationalist anger we see in today's society. Firstly, the effects of globalist free market economics have caused major corporations to conduct their operations in significantly cheaper areas of the world. This has led to huge job losses, particularly in manufacturing, right across Europe and America. Free market economics leads to cheaper prices for all of us as consumers, but the consequence of this is a vicious winner-takes-all outcome, which has led to increases in national unemployment. Another issue we see today is that of multiculturalism. It's an issue which is extremely convoluted from whichever way you look at it. Migration has all sorts of pros and cons, but it's clear that when it occurs en masse, it can lead to significant tensions between ethnic groups due to conflicting value systems and the dilution of the home nation's traditions. Whilst my personal view on immigration is more positive, we cannot strawman the challenges associated with multiculturalism and instantly brand critiques as racist. Traditions and history must be respected in every country, and the inhabitants should not feel alienated as their communities are completely changed around them. If we put these pieces of the puzzle together, what we see is the emergence of a large portion of the population who are angry and disenfranchised. They see that many of their jobs are gone, traditions eroded in the name of multiculturalism. They've been branded as racist fools by the politically correct left. And most are plagued with the silent epidemic of the post-Enlightenment world, nihilism. But let's get back to our story. Pretty soon, Fight Club is no longer just a recreational martial arts group, but a movement called Project Mayhem, who want to create a new world order. They start off small, hanging up signs that encourage people to reuse rather than just buy. But pretty soon, it becomes sheer anarchy. For as Tyler said, they are no longer individuals, but there to sacrifice themselves for a greater cause. Their cause being to tear the existing system to the ground. The members of Project Mayhem begin to speak in unison and reiterate the rules of their organization in a parrot-like manner.
The first rule of Project Mayhem is you do not ask questions.
They are no longer individual beings capable of critical analysis, but are ideologues who regurgitate the tenets of their value system. They even dress the same to mark their homogeneity and collectivist ideology. It is at this stage that the narrator becomes fearful of Project Mayhem. He sees the chaos it is causing and how it has possessed large groups of men. It is at this stage that we begin to see a schism between Tyler, the leader of Project Mayhem, and the narrator. Soon after we find out that Tyler Durden had been a figment of the narrator's imagination all along. He was the embodiment of all that the narrator had needed to become alive once more. Strong, decisive, and fearless. But what we are now seeing is an inner psychological contention between two ideas. Tyler wants to destroy the credit card buildings to roll back individual debt to zero and start society anew. The narrator is firmly against this act of domestic terrorism. The difference between Tyler and the narrator is that whilst they are both aware of the problems that are in their modern society, they have different beliefs on what needs to be done. The fundamental difference we see is that the narrator is taking a more individualist approach, whilst Tyler is taking a collectivist approach. Now, I should stress that emphasis on the collective doesn't necessarily lead to violence or revolution. A certain degree of collective societal values can go a long way in ensuring a strong and homogeneous value system. However, when collectivism starts to border with tribalism, that's when danger can occur. History has taught us time and time again, across both left and right, that when a disenfranchised group adopt an us versus them mentality and channel their anger into overthrowing the current system, the results are almost never positive. In fact, I'm tempted to say that most genocides and terrors had a tribal us versus them ideology at their core. Emphasis on the collective can often lead to sets of beliefs which are not allowed to be questioned. It leads to oversimplified worldviews which become a scapegoat for every single problem that group sees in modern society. Today's Trump and Brexit voters have a lot of valid reasons to feel disenfranchised, and there needs to be an intelligent discussion on this from all sides of the political spectrum. But we can never allow collective tribalism to descend into chaos, violence, and destruction. The Slovene leftist philosopher Slavoj Žižek famously said, "It is now time for the left to think and not act." I think he's absolutely right, but I would also apply this to today's right. Today is the time to think.